part of the Boundless Audio Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome to the Artist Pivot Podcast. My name is Ayana Major-Bay, and I am an actress, voiceover artist, mentor, and your host. This show is a bi-weekly conversation highlighting pivots and life lessons from the perspective of artists, those who work in and around the arts, and arts educators. For those listening who don't consider themselves artists, you can pivot too. Everyone possesses the ability to do so. You just have to be reminded sometimes. All of our life lessons have taught us to be better pivoters, and it is my goal to share these life lessons to guide and inspire others. Here is this week's episode. Before we get into this week's episodes, yeah, I said episodes, I want to say welcome to the Season 4 finale. I have 2 great episodes to wrap up the season. Part 1 featuring financial literacy educator and former modern dancer David Maurice Sharp, and Part 2 featuring author, illustrator, musician, and founder of the Hell Yeah Group, Paco de Leon. I wanted to feature artists who've made pivots into the financial industry because they wanted to help other artists and creatives thrive. David and Paco, respectively, have thought about their skill sets, their artistic communities, and merged them together to educate and empower. In these 2 episodes, we discuss dispelling the idea that artists aren't good at finances and investing, identifying our limited beliefs around money, and how the information is out there, it just needs to be put into our language. Additionally, both David and Paco have amazing stories as to how their books on finances for artists came to be. Here's part 1. All right, y'all. So today on the podcast, I am so excited to say that joining me is Mr. David Maurice Sharp, and he is the author of The Thriving Artist, Saving and Investing for Performers, Artists, and the Stage and Film Industries. In 2014, he was named a Money Hero for his work in financial literacy for artists by Money Magazine. David currently teaches at HB Studio in New York City and frequently does workshops for Entertainment Community Fund, MusiCares Foundation, and the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. He danced for Mimi Garrard Dance Theatre, Lucinda Childs, Rachel Lampert, and Anna Sokolow, among others. And his choreography has been performed at such venues as Lincoln Center, La Mama, Edinburgh Fringe Festival, New York City Fringe Festival, Soho Rep, and Ensemble Studio Theatre. David is also a consulting director for Prime Clerk, specializing in U.S. and international restructurings. David, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here. Woo, 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 on the Artist Pivot.
Exactly. Yay.
Yes. Okay, so my first question to you. If I texted you right now and said, David, how are you? What's going on? How's your day? But you could only respond in emojis only, what would you text me?
The party emoji.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's a beautiful day. It's a great time. I'm being interviewed on a great podcast. Come on, party
Yes.
time.
Oh, I love that. I received that imaginary text message. Yes.
Awesome. Yay.
That's great. That's great. Oh, I love that. I love that. Y'all, we got a party emoji today.
Exactly. And we just started.
And we just started. Listen, I'm here for it. That's the intention today. We're having a party. So, David, I brought you on because I want to talk about like your journey from being a modern dancer to now a financial literacy educator. Like, to me, in my head, those 2 things are they don't really go together. But like you have made them. Like you're like, I'm going to transition from this to this and nobody's going to tell me I'm not.
Exactly. One of my favorite things to do in whichever world I happened to be in was to just mention that this was the other thing I did. So like when I was in these Wall Street meetings, I was like, yeah, I'm actually a modern dancer. And when I was modern dancing, I was feeling, well, I like work on Wall Street because people would go, what?
Casual.
I'd say, come on, this makes total sense. It's completely logical. Not even remotely so, right? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. but it weirdly worked out for me. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so
Mhm.
I was, as a dancer, not a big surprise to anybody. Modern dancers are not some of the most highly paid artists in the United States. I think
Mhm.
the only people lower on the totem pole usually are like poets,
Mhm.
maybe. So, I was always struggling to find ways to make ends meet, but I didn't want to do something that was going to be physically really draining because I was
Mhm.
already dancing, and that's already physically draining enough. So I didn't want to like wait tables or work, the cater waiter or lifestyle because
Mhm.
I was tired. Dancing is tiring.
Yes.
I had a friend say, "Why don't you try temping?" And I went to this interview. The temp agency said, "We have to send you to an interview at this place because they don't want to hire anybody without interviewing them."
Mhm.
And the first question this woman asked me was, "What do you know about Wall Street?" And I said,
Mhm.
"Not a single thing, but I can learn
Mhm.
because we're artists, right? We're adaptable. We can learn anything."
Yes.
And she said, "Oh, okay. Tell me about your dance career. Tell me about cabaret, which I just finished doing." And we
Okay.
talked about my performing career for the rest of the interview. So I left thinking, yeah, not happening.
Mhm.
Got home and they said, there was a message from the agency saying they want you to start immediately. So, and it was a company that worked on like corporate takeovers and
Okay.
tender offers and all this stuff that I was like learning on the fly and just,
Yeah.
you fake it till you make it, you just figure it out.
Mhm.
But I started specializing in an area they didn't have anybody else specializing in,
Okay.
and they wanted to hire me because they realized they were also starting to send me on these business trips. So like my
Mhm.
very first business trip with them was I showed up and they said, "Can you go to Chicago tonight?" And I said,
Oh.
okay, but I don't have my suitcase, nothing. They said, we'll send you in a car back to your apartment, pack, the car will wait for you, come back. So I was
Okay.
like, okay, this is
Okay.
not what I'm
Okay.
used to, but okay. So I did. And I got back there and I said, "What time's the flight?" And they said, "Oh, it's around 10ish or something." And I said, what do you mean around? There's like, do I have a ticket? They had a private jet waiting to
Oh.
take me to Chicago. Um, with this other executive. So the next thing I know, I'm at like Teterboro Airport getting into this private Learjet being flown to Chicago. So I was like, okay, this is certainly an interesting experience. So I get back from that, and then they're like, "We're going to send you on a commercial flight." Oh my gosh,
Oh.
to California after
Mhm.
that. And then the temp agency started seeing these timesheets and going, "What the heck is happening to this temp?"
Mhm.
And then they said, "You can't like send our temps on business trips." So because
You're
it's
like, "Yes, yes,
there's
you can."
yeah, you can. So they agreed to hire me, and I said, "No, I'm still dancing because I need to do it while I can." And
Mhm.
it ended up that they agreed to let me work like 20 hours a week whenever I could
Mhm.
fit it in. So they said, "Go to classes, you can go on tour, you can, go to auditions, do what you need to do. We just need you to give us 20 hours each week." So it ended up being a great s- sort of stable source of income for me to help
Mhm.
supplement what I was earning dancing.
Mhm.
But it also taught me about investing
Right.
and how investing can actually give you that sort of stability, and how your assets can actually work for you like little employees.
Mhm.
So it was after that, when I was retired from dancing, that I was like, we can marry these two worlds together because the information about how to invest and save
Mhm.
is really beneficial for people who don't have regular income sources like artists and other freelancers. So it
Right.
kind of just gelled into that. And honestly, if I, now looking back, it's like, well, that makes total sense. At the time, there's no way I would have thought I ended up where I am now, which is one of the exciting things about life, right? You never know
Right.
where it's going to lead you.
Right. That's true, especially if you say yes. If you say yes, you're like, you never know where it's gonna lead you.
Exactly, exactly. And just be standing there and making sure that you take advantage of the opportunities that arise because, I never would have thought I was going to work on Wall Street, but I was
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, I need to do this. And then every time they said something, I'd be like, yeah, I can do that. I'll figure it out. I can work on a computer. I can do this. I can do that. I'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Sure, I'll go to Chicago, why not? And
Yeah.
it all sort of leads you in these really fascinating directions,
Yeah.
that can then help you later on in life.
Exactly, exactly. So with that, I wanna pick up on something you mentioned. You when they offered you that full-time job and you're like, "Ooh, no, I wanna, continue dancing while I can." Did you kind of make the decision, to when you were looking at this working, this Wall Street job that you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna retire soon from my modern dance career." Like, how far into your career were you like, "Okay, I think it's time to retire," or "I think it's time to maybe jump into this financial life?"
Yeah, well, no, I was pretty far. I mean, in dancer years, I was pretty far away. I was still more than a decade away from retiring.
Gotcha. Okay, okay.
Which, for dancer, it's like dog years, right? It's like 10 years. 10 years dancing is like 300 years in normal
Like,
human time.
and
Um,
athletes too as well.
and athletes,
Mhm.
exactly. It's all, you just, it ends quickly for
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
But what I was looking at was, and again, I didn't really give them the choice of framing it for me. I framed it for them. And I
Gotcha.
said, I'm still dancing. So no, I don't want to do this. And then they were like, but wait a minute, we need you. So what could we do to make it worth your while? And I said,
Mhm.
well, I can't give you a schedule. I can't, I don't know what my schedule is, because some days I have auditions, or you can get a call, you have a call back, you have rehearsals. I'm doing a concert. I don't want to come in if I'm exhausted. They were like, whatever. So it actually kind of morphed into a like morning or afternoon. So either I would come in the morning for a few hours, because basically I had to get 4 hours in a day.
Okay.
So it was either, in the morning or the afternoon. And all the executives like sort of started learning that. And they would just, they would come in and say, so tomorrow, is it morning or afternoon? And so that they would know when they could ask me their questions, because they got
Ah.
used to the fact that I wasn't going to be there. So I insist, because I was like, I'm happy to walk away from this if it means that I'm not going to be able to dance, because that's why I'm doing this. So,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then they were like, okay, we'll figure out how to make it work for you.
Mhm.
It never occurred to me that you couldn't do that. I mean, I found out years into it that people were saying, wait a minute, there are no part-time workers here. There's only one. You're the only part-time worker in this
Mhm.
firm, or that they've ever had. And I was like, oh, well, okay. Why is that? Why aren't there more?
Right. Maybe we should adjust the system. There should be more.
Exactly,
There
exactly,
should be
exactly,
more.
because you could see that it worked.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yes. I love that. And to me, the word audacity just came. Like, you kind of had the audacity to be like, "Okay, but this is what I want, and if you can't give it to me, then thank you so much, I bow out." But they were
exactly.
like, "No." They clearly loved you and were like, "Okay, we have to make this work for David."
Right, right, and I was good at what I did for them. They knew
Mhm.
that I was good. It wasn't like I didn't have anything in my pocket to say, you need me for this, but they could have found somebody else, absolutely. But I also realized I didn't ever treat it as just like a throwaway job.
Mhm.
Always went into it thinking I have to do the best that I can do here also, and if that's good for them, great. If it's not, okay, time to
Mhm.
move on. But
Mhm.
I think most artists, if not all artists, tend to have that attitude also, because
Yeah.
we're so dedicated to what we do as artists, and that kind of bleeds into everything else that we do. It's very
Correct.
difficult for us to just be sort of like, yeah, okay, let me muddle through this. That's just not in our DNA.
It's not. It's really not. I 100% agree with you. Like, I'm going to show up and give you my best. Even if it's this, like, brand ambassador job, for the day at, I don't know, the US Open or whatever it is. I'm gonna
Exactly.
give you my best.
Exactly, because that's how I work. That's how I
Mhm.
operate. So, and I
Mhm.
think that helps give us the ability to be a little bit audacious and say, "Yeah, I'm giving you my best, so give me what I need."
There it is. There it is. Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. So then with the transition of, okay, so now you've gotten to, I'm gonna retire from modern dance. Tell me
Right.
about that transition into you're now, like, working with financial literacy and education. Did it immediately come like, "Oh, I'm gonna, like, educate artists," or was there another transition?
There was it had started with while I was still doing
Okay.
both dancing and working on Wall Street, that mutual funds, which are now incredibly commonplace, but at that time they were just starting to become available
Okay.
to people to invest in. And mutual funds are a collection of assets that you can buy a piece of. So it's a great way to become diversified.
Mhm.
prior to these mutual funds, in order to invest in stocks and bonds, you had to have a lot of money. It was much more difficult to do. Mutual funds kind of leveled the playing field and made it much more accessible to everybody, right? And I started having a lot of my artist friends contact me and say, look, we're really interested in investing in these mutual funds. We feel really uncomfortable calling them because we don't have a lot of money to invest and we don't understand the language of what they're talking about. So we feel like really embarrassed to be asked, and they kind of are condescending to us, and we're not comfortable. Can we ask you some questions because we know you work on Wall Street? So I was, of course, yes, no problem. We ended up, a group of us got together and formed an investment club called the Thriving Artist Investment Club.
Okay.
And we named it that because we wanted to get away from this idea that artists have to be starving, right? We wanted to be thriving. We were like, let's turn the meaning of what it is to be an artist around. So we met once a month. We put in just $25 a month, very, very low fees. And then we would the primary purpose of the investment club was for education. So we wanted to educate ourselves about investing so that people did feel comfortable getting into it. But we also then voted on things to invest in with the money that we put in. After just under 10 years, we decided that it was, it had run its course and it was time to disband. And we, those of us that had been in it from the beginning made like a 40-something% profit off of our money, which was like, you go, okay, a bunch of artists that aren't supposed to understand it, that's a pretty substantial profit margin there. So it all clicked in with all of us. One of the members of the Thriving Artists ended up becoming the general manager and artistic director of HB Studio, which is Uta Hagen's acting studio here in New York City. And she said, could you come in and start teaching some classes for the students at HB? Because I think they could really benefit from this information. And then I was doing that for a while. I decided to go into the business world full time for a little while, and it was just soul sucking. I mean, I was just like, I cannot do this. I need to get back somehow being involved in the arts, but I was still sort of teaching through that. And the teaching was a really great kind of touchstone for me because I knew how much it was helping them. So then I kind of was like, well, how about if I quit working on Wall Street and let me try to write a book? Because I've had students say, why don't you write a book sometime? Because I always say the financial information that's out there is great financial information, but almost none of it is geared towards us as artists, right? It's all geared towards what I call the ordinary people, the ones who have a regular job and a 401k and yada, yada, yada. So they were like, I had students say, why don't you write a book? And I was like, yeah, sure. But then I was like, well, how about what's the worst that can happen? I quit my job. I try to write a book. I try to do more teaching. At worst, I go back and I find a job that says, would you like fries with that? I mean, I can always do that. There's always something else. And just to show you how the universe sort of works in really interesting ways, I quit my job and started writing on November 1st of that year. By March, now I had never done anything before that. By March, I had a signed contract with Taylor and Francis publishers to publish the book. And by July, they said, can we see the manuscript? I sent it to them. And being the neurotic dancer, good doobie that I am, I had been working diligently on it. So I sent it to them and say, we want to fast track this. And it was published the following February. So it was, and then I looked back and started talking to other writer friends, and they were like, what do you mean you got a contract with a publisher? And I was like, it never occurred to me that that couldn't happen. And I the opportunity arose, and I said, yeah, this clearly is information that needs to get out there. And I've been kind of doing it ever since. So now I work a lot with the Entertainment Community Fund and have started branching out into other kinds of artists and freelancers because, as with most things, artists pave the way first, and then the other people kind of glom onto that. So the freelancers, it's the same idea. It's just we have to look at it differently, and people just weren't talking about that.
That's it. Oh, I love that. And to pick up on things that you said, number one, your book is great.
Thank you.
I love your book. Your book was the reason I was like, oh, I think I can do this, because I always kind of felt like Wall Street and investing, I don't have enough money for that. But you're just
Right.
like $5, y'all. Like, if you can
Yeah.
take $5 and start, like, it's that, like, we think we need so much money. So your number one, your book is great.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Awesome.
Number two, I love, and you're absolutely right, the universe works in mysterious ways. That you were like, I'm gonna write a book, and then a couple months later you had a deal. And people
Right.
were like, what?
What?
But it's like you had to take the first step, and then the
Exactly.
universe responded.
Exactly. I had to put it out there. And just
Mhm.
when I happened to be having dinner with some friends who said, "Oh, we have a publisher. Do you want us to ask them if they want to see a treatment for your book?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure. That would be great."
Right.
And that's, you just have to be there you have to say yes,
That's
right?
it. You have to say
You have to
yes.
say yes. You have to say yes. And to your point about, yes, you only need $5 to invest, part of it is you need to start doing it so that you learn, because you learn in the doing. It's like I always say to my students, look, if as a dancer I said I'm never going to take a role in dance until I know everything there is to know about dance, I
Ooh.
would never have done anything, right?
Mhm.
By doing the roles, you learn what you need to strengthen, what you're good at, and this exact same thing is true with investing. If you just do little pieces, you're going to get yourself over that fear, and you're going to open up the what you need to learn about it. You're going to start to see how it works, and then it gives you the confidence to keep building. It's like a snowball effect,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's
Yes.
really important.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. And I love the way you just broke that down. Like, if I waited to learn everything before I like audition for this role or audition for that, you're never gonna do it, because you're never
No,
gonna learn a life is literally learning every single day.
absolutely. And a lot of times, the other image I like to give people is, we often think of building a financial wellness platform for ourselves as carving a statue out of marble.
Mhm.
And it's not that. It's more like growing a tree. And it's going to be
Ooh.
continuously changing as you go along. You're going to have to, at times, you're going to have to prune it. You're going to have to
Mhm.
feed it. Sometimes it's going to grow more than other times. Sometimes
Mhm.
there's going to be parts of it that you go, "Oh, I don't know if this one's going to make it." But it's a constantly growing and changing thing. It's not something set in stone.
Mhm.
Just like your acting, just like your dance, just like your singing, whatever your art form is, it's ever changing, and don't be afraid of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that, but David, I think we're having to learn that and take onus of that, because I think, like you said, like the ordinary people, the 9 to 5ers, go to college, pick a job, and that's your life.
Yeah,
But for artists, we're constantly changing,
right.
and it's being okay with that, I think.
It absolutely, change is one of the scariest things, but it's also one of the most rewarding things. and
Mhm.
and the ordinary people who are stuck in that 35-year routine. I
Mhm.
remember my father once said to me, because my father was a civil engineer who was
Okay.
working in a company that was, he did it for 30, 40 years,
Mhm.
because that was the trajectory you did.
Yeah.
And when he suddenly had a child who was going into the arts and doing like dance or something, it was just like, what? um, but he was very supportive. Both my parents were very supportive. But I remember having a conversation with him one time and saying, and it was when I was getting ready to retire
Mhm.
from dancing, and I said, you know it's a really difficult time, because dancing was my passion. I would
Yeah.
have given up anything to do that. And
Mhm.
now that I'm not able to do that, I'm looking at the future and saying, what am I ever going to find to do that is going to give me that same passion that I had as a dancer? And I have
Mhm.
to kind of come to accept the fact that that probably won't happen. Luckily, it did happen, because I love teaching, as you can tell. But
Yes, yeah.
um, but his response to me was, I've never felt that in my life. And I envy the fact that
Wow.
you have been able to do a career that was that you were so passionately happy with, because I can't
Mhm.
really say that that has been the case in his work life. Obviously, in his
Yeah.
personal life, it was different. And that really stuck with me, because I thought there's so many people that don't get to experience what we get to experience as artists. And we have to
Mhm.
remind our in all those days when we're going, oh, I didn't get that audition, this isn't going well, we're doing things that we're passionately in love with. And that
Yes.
is such a blessing to us that
Yes.
they don't get to experience. And then, lo and behold, I was lucky enough to like transition into teaching artists about finances, which is, again, a weird topic, but it's like I am passionately in love with that too, because I
Right.
know how much it helps them. So
Right.
the
Oh,
journey is, you never know the journey, right?
yes. You never know it. You never know it. But it's great. It's that like being in love with what you're doing and passionate about it also helps you to like keep going. You're just like, no, but
Absolutely.
I really love this and I'm really passionate. I gotta figure out a way to keep going.
Exactly. I'm going to find a way no matter what. It was when I was
Mhm.
dancing, there was just no question but that I was going to do it. And I would
Mhm.
sacrifice anything to do it. And that's
Mhm.
why I think when the Wall Street company came to me and said, we will hire you. I was like, yeah, not happening.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Unless it's on my terms, because I can't give that up
Yeah.
until I absolutely have to.
Yeah. Understood, understood. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that so much. So my next question to you, David, would be what is your favorite like topic to teach under the financial umbrella? So I know that there's the stock market, but then within that, there's like stocks and bonds and IRAs. You can invest in this, the 401ks. Like, do you have like a specific section that you like to teach about?
Yes, the danger is always that there's too many choices,
Ooh, okay.
right? Because then you're dealing with a population who are already terrified of going into the pool, right?
Me.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're like, I can't. So usually, the eureka moment that I love to sort of present them with is
Mhm.
talking about. I do go into the detail of the difference between stocks and bonds, but then I talk about mutual funds, which are the easiest way to get started in
Mhm.
investing, and you can get a very general all-inclusive mutual fund. You can get an
Mhm.
all-stock mutual fund. I mean, you can be very, you just have to pick one to start. But what I love to tell them is, okay, it used to be that mutual funds, the minimum to open a mutual fund was quite high. It was like
Yeah.
$3,000, $5,000. It's a
Mhm.
lot. And for an
Mhm.
artist, like just starting, that's terrifying, right?
Mhm.
But there are now a lot of products, mutual fund products, that the minimum to open a mutual fund with them is $1.
Mhm.
And I say to them, there is nobody that's listening to my voice that can't come up with $1 to put in to get their toes wet. And because
Mhm.
I'm a skeptic and I don't trust anything, I opened accounts at all of those firms and I tried to invest $1 at a time. And you
Mm.
can. So I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
tell you. So that's my favorite thing, is because it really kind of, I always tease them and say it's taking the crutch away. We use the crutch of I can't do this until I have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Sorry, just kick that crutch away. You got to walk on your own. You can
Yeah.
do $1. You can. It's possible. And are you going to become independently wealthy doing $1 a month? Probably not. But it's going to get you that introduction to the market
Mhm.
that is going to start educating you, like we were talking about before. You're going to learn as you go.
Yes.
And so I think that's one of my favorite things to do, because you just see the look on the face when you say it's $1 and they're like, what? I can't like tease you about that anymore. It's I can't say, oh, this is what's preventing me from starting because I'm going to wait until I have a lot of money, because
Mm.
you don't. So
Yes. That's it. And I can see like y'all you can't see him, but I can see the smile on his face. You really do get joy of like, I just took your crutch away, so what you gonna do about it?
I know, exactly, exactly. So the next time I talk to you, I better hear that you put $1 in something.
Right. There better be $2 because it's been 2 months since I spoke to you. So
Exactly. 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 And then you hear them, they come back and they're like, oh, this is starting to make sense now. I can see what's happening with this. It starts to make sense.
Mhm.
So it's awesome. It's awesome.
Mhm.
That's my favorite. That's definitely my favorite moment in any class.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that so much because it's also like, again, you speak our language. Like,
Exactly.
literally, you speak our language, and you're like, okay, y'all, I know this is scary. I trust me, I know,
I
but you can
walked the
do it.
walk. I walked the
Right.
walk. I was there.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's terrifying. It can be terrifying, but
Mhm.
putting yourself at risk for I mean, the first time I invested in a mutual fund
Mhm.
was back pre like internet. So you had to write a check. And I think I had to
Oh,
write a check for like $1,000. And I was
okay.
like, oh my gosh, I'm like throwing this is like money that took me forever to save up. And I was like sending it off into like the vacuum and just hoping that I would hear something back that it didn't, you know. Um, a dollar is not going to have that same fear factor, right?
Yeah.
So it's much easier now and much less. I also like to say, you know, there are those people that like to jump in the pool,
Mhm.
right? Jump in the deep end. I was never one of
Mhm.
those people because I hate being cold. So it would take me a half an hour to get into the pool, just
Uh-huh.
sort of wade in a little bit at a time. There's not either way will get you to where you either way gets you in the pool swimming, right? It's just
That's
sometimes
it.
it takes a little bit longer for some people. And
That's
that's
it.
okay. Just make sure that you start the journey.
That's it. Just make sure you get in the pool, y'all. Just make sure you
Yeah,
get in. Even if you stay in the shallow end and, do a little wait, that's fine.
that's fine. It's
It's
fine.
fine. But you're in the
It's
pool.
you're in the pool and you're starting to figure out what's going on. Exactly.
Mhm. Mhm.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. So I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
The first one would be, what would you say is your, I don't want to say greatest life lesson because you're still learning, you're still here. But like, what's a lesson that you've learned, whether it's personally, financially, career wise, that you're just like, this lesson I've carried with me in all of my years so far?
I would say it's something we've touched on a few times, and
Hmm.
that's, you know, don't assume that the path is set for you in front of
Hmm.
you. Like don't
Hmm.
be afraid to say, well, that may be the way it usually is done, but I don't want to do it that way.
Hmm.
There, you know, if you look color outside the lines, basically, you know,
Yes.
it's I did it with Wall Street, I did it with the book, I did it with,
Hmm.
you know, I never sat back and said, okay, everybody else does it this way, so that's the way I have to do it. And again, I think artists naturally think that way,
Hmm.
but a lot of times society makes us believe that we shouldn't necessarily try to color too far outside the lines. And I think that the exact opposite is true. The more we can do that, the more it's going to open up for us.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we don't need to conform to that
Hmm.
those rigid guidelines.
The rigid guidelines. But
Yeah,
but also they're guidelines. They're not
exactly.
like set in stone. We
Right.
can like break the guidelines. We can break the rules.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as you're smart about it
Right.
and you're doing it for reasons that are furthering what you need to do,
Mhm.
go for it. Go for it because
Exactly.
most ordinary people don't normally think that way. And so it's tough for them to like if you're in that kind of an environment, it's tough to get them to think a different way. But
Mhm.
that's their problem, not mine.
Yes, I love that too. That's your problem. That's not mine.
Yeah, I can think that way. I'm sorry that you can't, but I can.
Right, right. Let me know if you need help because I'll help you think that way. But until
Exactly.
then,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah. You can be all angsty over that. I'm fine.
Right. I'm good. I'm good. So actually you kind of answered my next question with that answer. It was just gonna be like, what is your nugget of wisdom for, other people? And I think color outside the lines might be it.
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
and trust that, you know, at least in terms of your investing and everything, we really need to dispel this idea that artists aren't can't be good at that because
Mhm.
nothing could be further from the truth. All of our
Mhm.
skills as artists actually make us really good at it. We've
Mhm.
just been convinced that we shouldn't be good at it or that we shouldn't
Mm.
understand it or it's bad if we understand it, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, you're going to be, you know, in order to produce great art, we also often think, you know, you have to go through all this angst and difficulties and everything. You're going to have as many difficulties if you have money as if you don't with your
Come
art. Art
on.
is hard.
Okay.
Art is
Yes.
always going to be hard. And so,
Mhm.
like, the fact that you're poor doesn't make it harder. It does make it harder, but it doesn't make it better art. It's you can be rich and still it can be hard. So, don't be afraid to empower yourself and to embrace that because we've also I think that there is that tendency to think well, in order to be a great artist, you have to really struggle and not have a lot of money. I don't buy into that either. I think that's rubbish. I think we can be incredibly empowered and we'll still be angsty. So it's fine.
Right.
That's not going to go away.
Exactly. But that's also like, I feel like that a lot of people have kind of mentioned that of like, where did the struggling artist thing come from? And that's probably like a whole nother conversation, like research that needs to be done of like, no, really, where did this like concept of the struggling artist come from? Like that somehow validates your art.
Right, exactly. I have no idea, because if you look at other countries, they don't have that concept really. They're like supported. They get benefits. You know, it's a very strange mentality that I don't know where it arose from, but I'm one of the first ones leading the charge to like dispel that notion, because that's
all right now
not helping any of us at all.
Right. It's not helping anybody. Let's dispel it, David. Let's dispel it, because you're right. Other countries, they're like, I have friends who are working in Germany right now, and when the whole pen was shut down, they were given benefits as artists.
Exactly.
What?
When I was dancing, there were like the dance companies in the Netherlands had paid vacation, and
yes, I've heard
health
of that.
benefits, and I was like, what? What happened here that we're struggling to even, make ends meet? It was crazy. It's crazy. So, and that's all over the place. So yeah, there's something that definitely needs to be changed about that.
Yeah. Well, David, you're on the path to changing it.
Let's hope. Keep up the fight, right?
Yes, keep up the fight. Yes. Okay, so before I let you go, I'm gonna ask you, where can everybody find you on the interwebs, on the internet?
On the internet, the best, easiest place is my website, which is davidmauricesharp.com, and that has a lot of information about me. It has information on how to get the book. It has a section on any upcoming classes that I have. It has all my social media links, all of that. So it's davidmauricesharp.com. It also has a place to fill out if you want to go on my mailing list. I send out a monthly like sort of check-in just with a couple tips. You're welcome to join that. Or if anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer questions too. You can send everything through that website. So that's probably the easiest one-stop shopping to find everything you need to know.
Okay, great. Don't worry, everybody. That will go in the show notes, so you can just click on it and the website will pop up. And David, I must say to you that I acknowledge you, I celebrate you, and I uplift you.
How wonderful. Thank you, Ayana. That's wonderful.
You're so very welcome. So very welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. And thrive.
Thank you.
Please feel free to visit this episode's show notes for links to get in touch with my guest, as well as a link to rate and review my podcast on Podchaser. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, all you have to do is scroll down to the rate and review section. You can find and connect with me on Instagram @TheArtistPivot to see audiograms, fun facts, and posts featuring my guest. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already to get notified when a new episode is out. And please share this episode with at least one friend. For those who are working on their mental health and well-being, on a journey of facing your fears, or trying therapy for the first time, our show sponsor BetterHelp is here to help you. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. BetterHelp makes professional therapy accessible and affordable with 20,000 plus therapists in their network, and the ability to request a new therapist at no additional charge anytime. I have found that therapy is a tool to use to improve your life in one of the healthiest ways. So join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. So many people use BetterHelp that they are currently recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/artistpivot. That's betterhelp.com/artistpivot. Ever heard the phrase found time? Well, Audible helps you find the time to get more stories and information while commuting, cooking, gardening, exercising, etc. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests, as well as guided meditation programs. They have podcasts, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, and exclusive Audible originals you won't find anywhere else.
Fun fact, if you listened to every title on Audible, you'd be listening for more than 3 centuries. So click the link in the show notes or visit audibletrial.com/theartistpivot to start your 30-day free trial of Audible and listen to that book you haven't read yet or laugh at a comedy special while doing the dishes. Again, that's audibletrial.com/theartistpivot. Using the link lets Audible know that we sent you and a great way to support the show. This episode was edited by Kieran Niemand and produced by me, Ayanna Major Bay. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll speak to you soon.